The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Tuesday, June 10th. I hope everybody is having a good week and yeah, doing well. Somebody says a full self-driving Model Y, Tesla Model Y was spotted in Austin. Yeah, I mean, they're supposed to be rolling them out commercially this month, not next month, this month. So the fact that they're out there being tested, that's good. I mean, yeah, Waymos are leaving LA. You might see more Waymos in Austin, Texas, because they're leaving LA, moving to Austin because, you know, in LA, they get burnt. Yeah, no drive-in cars. I love it. I love tech. I love driverless cars. Waymo's amazing. It's the only car I've ridden in. Waymo, Waymo. All right. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. As always, there's stuff going on, how to keep track of everything. But the Marines have been called up. And the Marines from just south of LA, from was it Camp Pendleton, I think it is, on the way to San Diego, are being called up, and they are now being deployed in Los Angeles. I mean, this is a real emergency. Stephen Bannon yesterday declared this the beginning of basically World War III. Bannon, what's happening in Los Angeles right now is the beginning of the kinetic part of World War III on U.S. soil. So, yeah, we need the Marines. I mean, if it's World War III, yeah, we need more than Marines. Soon, maybe there'll be tanks out there in Los Angeles. I mean, this is truly astounding. Los Angeles, a city, a massive city. Los Angeles County has a larger population than 40 states. There are not that many states that have larger populations than Los Angeles County, right? Michigan, a lot of you from Michigan. Los Angeles County has more people than Michigan, than the entire state of Michigan. No, I'm wrong. Michigan has a larger population. Scrap that. I was confusing Michigan with Wisconsin, which the Michiganians will never forgive me for, I'm sure. But certainly bigger than Wisconsin, Minnesota, and 40 states. Again, 40 states. So Los Angeles is a massive, there are about 5,000 people probably demonstrating. A fraction of those are the violent rioters. In Los Angeles County, there are 5 million Hispanics. 5 million Hispanics. 5,000 of them are protesting. Oh, wait, no. I'd say a big chunk of those protesters are not Hispanic. You know, if you can peek beneath the masks and everything else, they are they're actually not Hispanics. The Antifa types from that have rallied to go and riot and burn down Waymo and where their cafes. As in most, as in many of the pro-Hamas demonstrations, a lot of the demonstrators are not Arabs. They're just upper middle class Americans who've been indoctrinated by their professors into crazy, radical, insane, anti-American positions. So yeah, we've got a relatively small. I mean, if you remember riots, people are putting up these memes all over the internet. I love these memes, right? 1960s California, they show a bunch of white dudes on the beach cooling down, versus 2024 Los Angeles, fires burning and people rioting. They forget They forget to mention the Watts riots of 1968, which were, like by orders of magnitude bigger than what we're seeing right now in Los Angeles. And by the way, at that point, the federal government did not send troops. They also forget the Rodney King riots in LA. When was that, 91 or 92? Where, again, by orders of magnitude, bigger and more significant than these riots. So, I mean, this is really very minor. It should have been, clearly should have been left to LAPD and the California Highway Patrol to deal with. It's affecting, in terms of rioting, the demonstrations all over LA County, but in terms of rioting, it's affecting a very small sliver of Los Angeles. As I told you a couple of days ago, most people, I'd say 90% of people in Los Angeles are not being affected by this, probably more than 90%. Neocon says Bush sent the Marines in 1992 to LA, I guess after the governor asked for them. After the governor asked for federal help. Here, the governor's not asking for federal help. But 1982 was bad. 1992 was a lot worse than this. A lot worse than this. I mean, the idea that Hispanics in Los Angeles County are anti-American is ridiculous. The idea of Hispanics generally anti-American. I mean, if voting for Trump is supposedly pro-American, a big chunk of the Hispanic population of the United States voted for Trump. Now they're all anti-American, all of them. Kick them all out. Third worlders. We shouldn't allow any third worlders into the United States, we are told by the authorities on the right. By the way, there's a list. There's a list of kind of income of third worlders, of people who come from the third world, immigrants to the United States who have arrived from the third world. A list of those countries that their immigrants have household income on average higher than Americans. Higher than Americans. You want the list? Anybody interested in the list of countries who are categorized the third world, and yet the median, that's the 50% above, 50% below, median household income is higher than the national median, higher than like most Americans. India, Filipino, Iranian, Sri Lankan, Iranian, very high median income. You can see that in the fact that they dominate Beverly Hills in LA County. Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Pakistan, who would have thunk? Chinese, Vietnamese, Bolivian, Indonesian, Azerians. I guess they're not Iraqis and they're not Iranians, they're Azerians, okay? Peruvian, Turkish, Argentinian, Lebanese, Coptic Egyptians, Guyanese, Chilean, the Hmong are from an area in Vietnam, I guess, Southeast Asia. The Thai, Palestinians, Arab Palestinians, Costa Ricans, Syrians, Laotians from Laos, and Uruguayans, all third world countries where the median income is higher than the national median. But who's counting? Who's measuring? Why measure, right? We know, third world, ugly. They're terrible. They're anti-American. They riot. They do horrible things, and they don't assimilate. And we spend so much money on them, and the net deficit, it's a net bad. I don't know why the Nigerians don't show up, Jennifer. I'm not sure. Nigerians have the highest, at least a couple of years ago, had the highest education level of all immigrant groups. I assume that goes with income. So I'm not sure. This list that I got did not include Nigerians. So not sure what's going on there. I mean, it really is despicable. You're really seeing online now who is, who are the complete irrationals, who are the bad guys. I don't think China counts as third world anymore. I think it counts as second world. But I don't know. I don't know what definition they used. I didn't really delve deeply into these stats. It just it's a list by somebody is usually accurate, so I just used it. But we could delve into the stats and see. I know Indians are financially do the best. They're not well educated, but they're entrepreneurial. They start businesses. They own a lot of the roadside motels and a lot of chain restaurants, and they've done phenomenally well franchising, buying franchises. Mervyn's lives in Westwood. It's a nice area, and what was Mervyn saying about the riots? Did she say anything? Did I miss this in the? I missed this. I don't see it. All right. Anyway, I don't. Is she agreeing with me that nobody feels it, or people are not feeling it? I don't know. Can't keep track of the chat. Too much going on. All right. You really get a sense of who's who online right now by the comments they're making, the hysteria on the right, the attempt again to dehumanize and to dehumanize the immigrant, to dehumanize the other, so that we can continue to do horrible things to them, so we can continue to interested in can do what ICE is doing to them without any protest, without any complaints by most Americans, because we've already concluded that they're horrible. Immigrants are earning well. They're not, crime rates are down. Immigrant populations are, less criminal than native populations. They have less rates of crime, less rates of incarceration. They're for the most part, overwhelming majority are hard workers. And these riots, unfortunately, because they're captured by far left Antifa types, are going to be used by the right to villainize immigrants even more. To say, see, told you so. They're just a bunch of maniacs that want to burn down the city, want to burn cars and wear keffiyehs, and they're anti-American and anti-Western civilization. Yeah, the ones wearing the keffiyehs, the ones that are burning the cars, are indeed anti-Western civilization. But again, my guess is, and it's not a guess, my very educated guess is that these people are not the immigrants. They are the American, left anarchist, anti-Western civ. They hate it because their professors have taught them to hate it. Things in Los Angeles are nowhere near as bad as the images you're seeing on TV. Things in Los Angeles are nowhere near as bad as you would think to have been justified, given the Marines have been deployed and an extra whole bunch of National Guards have been deployed. What this really is, more than anything else, this is an attempt by the Trump administration. This is an attempt by Trump and by, Stephen Miller and the other, and the racists within the Republican Party, within MAGA, to escalate the situation so that they can continue to demonize immigrants and justify the tactics ICE is using, which I think most Americans, without these riots, are opposed to and horrified by. The riots, the focus on the riots, the attention the riots is getting, is a way of diverting attention from what ICE is doing to what the immigrants is doing, so that Americans will to build up Americans' tolerance for the horror of what ICE is doing. Troy just came in with 500 Australian dollars. Thank you, Troy. And a comment. He writes, I wish more people would call out MAGA for what it is. A racist movement. cleverly uses illegal immigration as some kind of moral cover. When you have grade A racists like Ann Coulter as one of your head spokesmen, you're on the wrong side of history. Yeah, I agree with you completely, Troy. I mean, it is a racist movement. And Ann Coulter is one. You remember what she said to Vivek? I would have voted for you, but I couldn't because you're an Indian. You just can't vote for an Indian for president of the United States. Your skin color is just wrong. And then you've got Stephen Miller, who's just every single day going out there and trying to vilify immigrants, primarily, again, immigrants with a particular skin color. Then you got Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh yesterday calling for zero immigration, illegal or illegal, from what they call third world countries, again, countries where your skin color is different. And then you get the Trump administration not giving asylum to Venezuelans who are suffering under the boot of socialism, authoritarian socialism in Venezuela, not giving them political asylum in spite of the fact that Venezuela is a completely unfree country where people are dying and imprisoned and silenced, but are giving asylum to white Afrikaner, Boer South Africans who are probably, are being discriminated against, there's no question, and who, bad things are happening to, but nowhere on the scale of, let's say, in Venezuela and Cuba, but they have the right skin color. They have the right skin color, and therefore they're allowed in. I told you a long time ago, you remember Charlottesville? I'm still being attacked for my position on what Trump said at Charlottesville. Whether Trump is a racist or not, Trump realized that MAGA is racist. He realizes that a significant number of the voters who voted for him are racists of one sort or another. And he plays to their racism. He plays to their racism, and now he is emboldening that racism. And he is emboldening people under him, Stephen Miller primarily, but then the entire MAGA intellectual class, intellectual in quotation marks, class of the Charlie Cooks and the Matt Walshes and the Ann Coulters, to be much more explicit about their racism. They're not shy anymore. They're not shy anymore. So absolutely, Troy, I agree with you, and thank you for the support. We really appreciate it. So I want to read you a little bit out of a Wall Street Journal article that was published yesterday about the marching orders that were delivered from the White House to ICE that ultimately sparked these the LA migrant crackdown and ultimately these demonstrations and then riots. So if you go back to late May, Stephen Miller, who is a top White House aide, I'm reading from this article, front page of the Wall Street Journal, who is the top White House aide and architect of the president's immigration agenda, addressed a meeting at the headquarters of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE. The message was clear. The president, who promised to deport millions of immigrants living in the country illegally, wasn't pleased. The agency had better step it up. Gang members and violent criminals, what Trump called the worst of the worst, weren't the sole target of deportations. Federal agents needed to, quote, just go out there and arrest illegal aliens. Miller told top ICE officials who had come from across the U.S., according to people familiar with the meeting, agents didn't need to develop target lists of immigrants suspected of being in the U.S. illegally, which is a long-standing practice. Miller said. Instead, he directed them to target Home Depot, where day laborers typically gathered for hire, or 7-Eleven convenience stores. Miller bet that he and a handful of agents could go out on the streets of Washington, D.C., and arrest 30 people right away. Who here thinks they can do it? Miller said, asking for a show of hands. Rah, rah, let's go arrest people. Let's go get them. ICE agents appeared to follow Miller's tip and conducted an immigration sweep Friday at the Home Depot in the predominantly Latino neighborhood of Westlake in Los Angeles. Helping set off the weekend of protests. On Saturday, Trump, let's skip this, skip all that, not what I want to cover, but there's some stuff here that was really, here we go. The administration's immigration enforcement is a sharp break from past government practices, according to attorneys, immigration advocates, and officials from previous administrations. Federal agents make warrantless arrests. Masked agents take people into custody without identifying themselves. Plainclothes agents in at least a dozen cities have arrested migrants who showed up to their court hearings. And across the U.S., people suspected of being in the country illegally are disappearing into federal detention system without notice to families or lawyers, according to attorneys, witnesses, and officials. They're disappearing. No notice. In Colorado Springs, Florida, at least 8 agents in tactical gear, shields, and rifles surrounded a home with guns raised to arrest a father with no criminal history. In Irvine, California, ICE agents drove a phalanx of military vehicles in the Orange County suburb, this is Irvine, to arrest a person, though not because he was a legal immigrant. They were seeking a resident's son who had allegedly posted flyers alerting neighbors to the presence of ICE agents. So now you can't even tell people, hey, there are ICE agents in the neighborhood. Take care. They can arrest you for that. The raid alarmed the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, a good organization, an organization that defends free speech, which requested a copy of the warrant. Criticism, quote, criticism of government officials is core protected speech. And to criticize them, you have every right, to identify them, unquote, said Aaron Turr, the group's director of public advocacy. The Trump administration defends its tactics for arrests, including many documented cell phone videos and posted on social media. ICE officers have been donning protective gear and concealing their faces because of threats, said Tom Homan. Really, threats. The White House borders up. They're simply trying to enforce the law and they're trying to protect themselves. Basically, the Trump administration is admitting that what they're trying to do is intimidate illegal immigrants into deporting themselves, leaving themselves. They even offering them $1,000 if they actually leave and show them proof that they're leaving. People are being, again, arrested, dragged away from their families, arrested in front of their children. And again, we're not talking about criminals. We're not talking about criminals. You know, early in the year, ICE officials set daily arrest quotas and deputized agents from the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. ICE officials eliminated a Biden-era policy that blocked officers from arresting people without proof of legal residency who happen to be in the vicinity of a targeted suspects. Raids at schools, churches, and hospitals are now allowed. So if you're in the vicinity of somebody who they're trying to arrest, and I think you can say this aloud, and you have the skin color of an illegal immigrant, they can arrest you. And then the burden is on you to prove that you're a U.S. citizen. I mean, imagine if your skin color is a little brown, that you now should and are advised to carry your passport A driver's license is not good enough because some states give driver's license to illegals. But you should carry your passport or some proof of citizenship with you. Social Security card. Somebody got released because they had the, what do you call that, express, the thing where you go through passport control at the airport for international flights really quickly. He had that card. Only citizens have that. In February, 2 agents wearing tactical gear entered El Porto's Mexican Cafe and Cantina in Liberty, Missouri, while another guarded the front door, according to a lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court in Chicago. In all, more than 10 agents participated at a Mexican cafe and cantina. The ICE agents said they were looking for someone, but didn't say who or provide a photograph, according to lawsuits. Agents arrested 12 restaurant employees. The suit against the government alleges the arrests were made without a warrant or probable cause that the workers would flee. In a court filing, much of which was redacted, the government said the arrests were, quote, were supported by documented probable cause determinations, which they're not supplying the documents of. I mean, the problem the administration have is that they're not catching enough illegals, so they've been ramping up steadily to catch more and to go places where they think a lot of illegals are, living. I mean, the stories here are just heartbreaking, and I mean, it's just, they've got a few stories. It's nothing. I mean, this is the United States of America. I think you're supposed to be. The land of the free, the home of the brave. You're not supposed to be able to arrest it without a warrant. And remember, immigration is not a criminal offense. It's a civil one. It's not a crime to cross the border illegally. I mean, it's not it's a civil offense. But this is being treated as if you're automatically a gun member. It's not a criminal. Wait a second. Wait a minute. Illegal immigration is a civil, not a criminal violation. Typically, in immigration cases, administrative warrants are typically used because it's civil, not criminal. Criminal warrants allow agents to break down doors and forcibly enter homes. That's what they're doing. They're breaking windows on cars. They're dragging people out of broken windows in automobiles. I mean, this whole thing is an absolute disgrace. And of course, people are they're taking them now at court hearings. So if you've got a pending asylum case, you've got to go and you got to go to to a court case, and you've got to go to the courts and the proceedings and everything. And now, because now Trump has receded all asylum, for 500,000 people who were here on asylum legally, they're now being taken as soon as they appear in court and deported or put in these deportation camps. Again, many of the people arresting are in plain clothes, masked, and they don't identify themselves. Somebody's going to get really hurt here. I mean, if I were wearing a gun, I'm not, and I don't intend to, but if I was wearing a gun, for a while I had a concealed weapons permit, and I had a Glock on me, and a bunch of masked men grab me, I'm reaching for my gun. And legitimately so. Somebody is going to get hurt. This is dangerous for everybody. But it's mostly dangerous for this country and what it stands for and what it is. This is no longer a country of individuals. This is a country of tribes and thugs. And, you know, beware if you land up on the wrong list. Beware if you criticize the wrong people. Now, it hasn't got quite that bad yet. They're not rounding up YouTube personalities and podcasters who criticize the government. But why not? At some point, why not? I mean, they're trying to get people fired for criticizing Trump and his minions. And indeed, one of the things that's being proposed is that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, be arrested. One of Trump aides proposed arresting Newsom because he was opposed to the deployment of federal troops and so on. And Trump's been asked about this several times, refusing to say he would object. So some reporter today asked Trump, what crime has Governor Newsom committed to warrant his arrest? And this is Trump. This is the president of the United States of America. I think his primary crime is running for governor because he's done such a bad job. It's the wrong philosophy. So by this reason, by this logic, if one can't accuse Trump of logic, Newsom's crime is doing a bad job and having a bad philosophy. I mean, most people, or a lot of people, have a bad philosophy according to Trump because they disagree with Trump. I mean, that's basically your ultimate sin. Does that mean we're all open to being arrested because we had a bad philosophy? You can't run for governor without fear of being arrested unless you are of the philosophy of MAGA, philosophy, the mystical, delusional of MAGA. I mean, what the hell? Again, America? We elected this guy? I guess we did. You guys did. Somebody did. I didn't. So, I don't know. What am I going to tell you? So, Mike Johnson was asked, Speaker of the House of Representatives. There's another great intellect. Speaker of the House of Representatives. He was asked the question, the president said that if he were Tom Homan, he would arrest Gavin Newsom. Do you believe Newsom should face consequences in a legal way? Okay, so Mike Johnson is being asked a simple question. Should, Gavin Newsom be arrested for being the governor of California, for being a leftist, for, being a Democrat, for disagreeing with Trump? Should he be arrested for any of those things? Nobody has made an actual criminal accusation against Newsom. This is Mike Johnson's answer. I mean, this is the state of the Republican leadership. That's not my lane. I'm not going to give you legal analysis of whether Gavin Newsom should be arrested. Really. But he ought to be tarred and feathered. I'd say that. So I'm not sure about the arresting part, because I'm not a legal expert and I don't want to. But vigilante justice, tar and feathering a guy for disagreeing with me and for being a Democrat and for running a state badly, in my opinion, that I'm for. This is not a joke. This is the President of the United States. This is the leader of the House of Representatives. A joke? He has the bad philosophy, so I'm going to joke about arresting him? That's not a joke when it comes from the president who has the power to do just that. That's not a joke from a president who sends ICE agents into people's, into restaurants and into Home Depots to arrest hardworking people. It's not a joke, objectively. If you understand the role of the president, if you understand the amount of power the president has, the president does not joke about using force against people who disagree with him. That is not a joke. That is a threat. And a joke, if it's a joke, then it disqualifies him from being president. Because anybody who jokes about using the force of government, the force of the presidency, against somebody who disagrees with you is not qualified, doesn't have the mentality, the what would you say? I don't know. The qualifications to be a president, the maturity, that's the word I was looking for, the maturity to be president of the United States. And for those of you defending him, shame on you. Shame on you. And as this country descends into, gang warfare, as this country descends into government gangs going around, breaking people's windows and dragging people out of cars and dragging people away in front of their families for the crime of working here illegally, as if in America you need the government's approval to work. In America, you need the government's approval to negotiate a wage with an employer. Illegal workers. What have we come to? I mean, just flash in your head a vision of Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, not a radical. And his attitude towards so-called illegal immigrants, or his attitude towards immigration more broadly, his attitude towards what America is, what it stands for, what it represents, and then compare to the nothing, I'm trying to avoid using really horrible language, to Donald Trump. You can imagine what I would like to say. Pretty despicable, guys. Pretty despicable. And it's happening, it's happening faster than what we expected. Again, Marines already on the streets of America. Those illegal immigrants, they might do us harm. They might do us harm. God help us. Yeah. Borders don't prevent people from crossing them. Borders define legal status, that's all. They define what laws apply. Borders are not there to stop people from coming. America had borders in the 19th century, and yet it did not restrict who came. I'll say it again. America had borders in the 19th century. America was a state in the a country in the 19th century, and it was growing at the fastest rate ever, and it was becoming the mightiest country on planet Earth, and was the freest country maybe in human history in the second part of the 19th century. And it had basically open borders. And it was still a country. It didn't negate its existence as a country. It didn't, no country now. And yet it had open borders. For all intents and purposes, anybody could come. Well, at least until 1894. After that, if you were Chinese, you couldn't come. But everybody else could still come. Still had borders. There's still borders. And then people could cross them. Wow. Amazing. And America did not deploy militarized agents to round up those who crossed and, forgot to sign their name or were illegally here. The job of borders is not to define violation of rights, where I can violate rights. It's supposed to define where I can protect them. People come to America because it is a land where rights are supposedly protected. Well, no more. No more. I mean, it's been a slow descent for a long time, but Trump is elevating, or not elevating, digging us further into this anti-rights hellhole. Yep. And of course, just so everybody's clear, I am an immigrant. I am an immigrant. And, my wife's skin color is could be easily interpreted as Hispanic. And, if she goes into America, she needs to carry a passport, which is absurd, ridiculous. This is our home. But not according to, I'm not worried because I have the right, I'm not worried, but it's really despicable. Talk about despicable from this administration. I know all I do is go after this administration because they deserve it. They've earned every single one of my criticisms. Yesterday, our, the guy who leads our health and human services, RFK, yesterday basically fired all the members of the committee that makes decisions about who receives immunizations, which, makes recommendations about immunizations, about vaccines, makes recommendations in terms of approving vaccines and who should and should not receive them. All of them were fired. Remember when Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, who's a doctor and a long-time vaccination advocate, remember when he ultimately decided to vote to confirm RFK Jr.? He said, just before the vote, he said this, quote, "If confirmed, will maintain the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices without changes." That is what RFK had promised him in order to get his vote. Well, Senator Bill Cassidy, what do you think now? What do you think now? Clearly, he was lying to you. It was obvious then. Now it's obvious. I don't see Bill Cassidy out there speaking out against this, even though I know he's against it, but I don't see him speaking out against it. And he's tweeting. He's tweeting about how awful illegal immigration is in Louisiana, or the riots are. He says, this is good. He says, if you're burning cars and threatening people, if you're an illegal and you're burning cars and threatening people, you should be deported. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that statement. But the reason the riots are happening is because the people being deported were not people who were burning cars and threatening people. They were just regular, hardworking Americans. This is what he said about yesterday's firing of the entire committee. Of course, now the fear is that the ACIP, this is the committee, will be filled up with people who know nothing about vaccines except suspicion, which is exactly what's going to happen. And he writes, I've just spoken with Secretary Kennedy, and I'll continue to talk with him to ensure this is not the case. How can you ensure this is not the case? And you're not reassuring us here. You said you talked to him. Did you get any guarantees from him that that would be the case? Did he suggest that he agreed with you? Did any of that happen, Senator Cassidy? Or just like he lied to you before, is he lying to you now? But it doesn't sound reassuring, Senator Cassidy. Not at all. Of course, you can't criticize Kennedy in public. He can't criticize Kennedy in public because he can't criticize Trump in public. Because he is, maybe he considers it, he is beholden to MAGA. His only chance of winning re-election is getting the support of MAGA. He might not win re-election anyway because MAGA is skeptical about him and would like a more MAGA-ish candidate. So in order to sustain his MAGA support, Senator Cassidy has to completely betray his own ideas, his own views, his own beliefs. Kennedy, of course, claimed that a clean sweep is needed to reestablish public confidence in vaccine science. Really? Maybe a clean sweep of you would help reestablish public confidence in vaccine science. But given that you, the head of the Health and Human Services, are anti-vax and have always been anti-vax, how can there be any confidence? And it's clear what your goal is. Anyway, I think Senator Cassidy now can be clearly identified as maybe the biggest coward in Washington, D.C. And that's a big statement because there were a lot of cowards in Washington, D.C. But his vote for RFK is one of the low points. One of the low points. God. So Kennedy's doing exactly what everybody feared he would do. Vaccines, I mean, if you look at the science, vaccines have done an unbelievable job at basically eradicating so many childhood diseases. And we're talking about the potential for vaccines to do so much more. Malaria, potentially HIV, and many other viruses could be eliminated. Diseases could be eradicated. But this administration is not funding the science. And this administration is destroying any trust in medicine, any trust in the, in vaccines that still exist in this country. I mean, the reality is that, this is a quote from an article that was published today, nobody has done more than Secretary Kennedy to sow unwarranted doubt about the safety and effectiveness of vaccines. And this decision demonstrates a complete lack of caring about the health and safety of every American. I agree with that completely. I mean, that in and of itself, he should be fired for that. But it won't happen. This is MAGA. We in a MAGA nation now, MAGA country. All right, let's shift to Russia, Ukraine. Last night, there's been a series of massive attacks by the Russians on Ukrainian cities using drones. But last night, the attack against Kiev, and I think they also attacked Odessa, is likely the largest mass drone attack against the civilian population in world history. The drones just flew into buildings all over Kiev. There was no attempt even to guide them toward military targets. They were just aimed at terrorizing the population of Kiev. They did the same thing in Odessa. They're doing the same thing in Kharkiv. They're just pounding the Ukrainians every night this week. This is the only purpose of this, because it has no military purpose beyond destroying the morale of the Ukrainian people, terrorizing them, and hoping that will lead to political pressure on Zelensky to surrender. It might lead to the opposite, to more support. But the reality is that these kamikaze drones are being sent by the hundreds. I think it was 500 drones last night. It turns out that Russia is producing Iranian-designed drones in Russia. And now it's possible, intelligence sources are claiming, that North Korea has turned to producing massive quantities of Iranian drones that the Russians are using. Now, think about that. I mean, think about what hundreds of drones would do to a city like Seoul in South Korea, and how basically defenseless against swarms of these, really any country is. And in southern North Korea, the distance between the border and Seoul is nothing. It's a few miles. Drones could reach there in minutes. And imagine thousands of drones landing in South Korea. I mean, I really hope all these countries are rushing to buy the Israeli laser tech to fight, to knock down drones. I mean, South Korea should be buying many units of these lasers. The Ukrainians should, if Israel will sell them. Good news on that front, by the way. A number of sources are now verified that Israel has actually sent Ukraine Patriot missiles. And Patriot missiles Israel doesn't need because it's got its own home-built air defense systems. They're sending them the missiles themselves. They're sending them the batteries. One of the Patriot batteries was sent to the United States for refurbishment and then sent to Ukraine. But this is great news because this suggests a change in Israeli policy. Israel, at the beginning of the war, was not providing Ukraine with military support, primarily because I think it did not want to antagonize. It did not want to antagonize the Russians because of the Russian presence in Syria. Russia has no presence in Syria anymore. Maybe Israel fears Russia less now, and now they're being provided. It was an Israeli ambassador said it was happening. There were other sources saying it. Maybe Israel's denying it, according to neocon. I'm pretty sure it's happening. There was talk about this even a while back. I get it that Israel denied it, but I think they want plausible deniability. But their own ambassador, acknowledged this. And again, it was multiple other sources also verified this. I think Israel is still worried about Russian presence in the Middle East. God, I mean, they're cowards. They're frigging cowards. I despise this Netanyahu government. I despise Netanyahu. And this is a good example of why. Israel should proudly say that it is on Ukraine's side and that it's on Ukraine's side and should proudly provide weapon systems and defense systems to the Ukrainians. Yes, Russia has some relatively minimal presence in an air base in Syria. Really? Israel's going to determine its foreign policy because the Russians are there? I think they're worried about the Russians turning on the S-400 air defense system, which is the most advanced, or the S-500, which are the most advanced air defense systems. But Israel better have ways to coping with those, because I'm sure the Russians are going to give those to the Iranians. So they need, having them in Syria to practice on so that they can take them out in Iran later on is probably good, not bad. And I would love to see an F-35 go up against any plane the Russians want to put up in the air. Now, true, Israel doesn't want to go to war with Russia. But got to stand up. Got to stand up for what is right, and got to be willing to defend yourself, and got to be willing to defend the good against evil. How can Israel expect other countries around the world to come to its defense, to provide it with help, unless it is willing to be on the side of Ukraine? Ukraine is not fully on the side of Israel, primarily because Israel is not on the side of Ukraine. So since the beginning of this war with Russia, Ukraine has become less supportive of Israel in the UN and places like that. Well, I mean, can't blame them given Israel's attitude. So this is Israel's fault. Anyway, a number of stories are broken also. That there's a story out that, Russian sources have clearly said that not only are they not putting an end to the Ukraine war, but part of their goal is to get NATO out of the Baltics, which is something I've told you since the beginning of the war, that the goals are much broader than this. Big fires in Kiev and other cities. Let me just see what else I wanted to... We'll talk about that in a minute. In spite of all that, and the fact that Russia supposedly is amassing 50,000 troops across the border and is going to open another front against Kharkiv province, the Ukrainian province in the northeast, probably in the summer, and as generally the Russians are planning a massive summer offensive to try to take as much land as possible during this period. So this is across some Sumy, S-U-M-Y, about 50,000 troops. In spite of all that, I want to say again to you that from a strategic point of view, Russia is losing. It's losing. Now, I'm going to read you from a post of a Russian political blogger, a pro-regime Russian political blogger, Igor Dmitriev. This is a translation of a post he recently put up, so which I think is reflective of the truth that's going on, how Russia is losing strategically, geopolitically. He writes, even the memory of the brief euphoria that accompanied the entry of the CSTO. CSTO is, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's the Old Soviet States Alliance. It's an alliance of Soviet states that is that was created. It's like the what do you call it? The Russian version of NATO, right? So he said, even the memory of the brief euphoria that accompanied the entry of the CSTO into Kazakhstan in January 2022 is gradually fading. Then it seemed that Russia was the guarantor of stability, the arbitrator, the center of power. And now there is nothing left of that feeling. Kazakhstan is confidently following its own path, forming its own security strategy. It signed a military cooperation plan with Great Britain, including the training of officers in British military academies. It is building a plant with its Singapore partners to produce 155mm ammunition. That's a NATO standard. It is introducing territorial reserve system based on Western models. Now, note that Kazakhstan is this massive country on the southeast of Russia, lots of oil, and lots of natural gas and lots of other minerals that was part of, was all about its alliance with Russia until very recently. He continues, all this is a paradigm where Russia is seen not as an ally, but as a potential threat. Azerbaijan has finally liquidated Armenian Otsk. That's a portion of Armenia that Azerbaijan has been seeking for a long time, without regard for the CSTO, and killed Russian peacekeepers. After the downed plane in December 2024, this is Azerbaijan plane, it publicly demanded an apology and compensation from Moscow, closed the offices of Russian government agencies. Aliyev plays openly. He is increasingly cooperative, this is Azerbaijan again, increasing cooperation with Ukraine, supplying humanitarian aid, and avoiding even formal neutrality. Armenia, in the past the main ally of Russia in the Caucasus, has effectively left the Russian orbit. Pashinyan, who is the leader of Armenia, has repeatedly announced his withdrawal from the CSTO. The country recalled its permanent representative to the organization and closed Russian propaganda channels. Uzbekistan has ignored the CSTO since 2012 and is actively developing partnership with Europe through summits and sectorial agreements. Last year, there was tension between Moscow and Tashkent, that's the capital, in connection with the assassination attempt of one of the government's officials and the alleged Chechen trace. I guess they accused the Chechens of trying to do this. Instead of neutral Finland, there's now, I've been telling you this forever, instead of a neutral Finland, there's now a 1,300-kilometer border with NATO. Sweden, which remained neutral even during World War II, participates in NATO military exercises and supplies weapons to Ukraine. The entire north of Europe is reorganizing its armed forces for joint exercise in the Arctic and the Baltic. All of Europe is turning into a single anti-Russian coalition. Germany is reorienting its production capabilities to military orders. The EU's defense spending is aimed at 5% of GDP. For the first time, a single European military budget has appeared. Syria, which recently played the role of showcase for Russian geopolitical influence, is now a platform for mass execution of pro-Russian elements. The Russian bases in Syria are the most vulnerable issue for Russia's African initiatives. They were a bridge to Africa, and they're for the most part gone. Over the past 3 years, the security architecture in Eurasia has changed radically. Russia is no longer a regional leader, a political center, or guarantor of stability. Geopolitical weight is not just decreased, it is being reset. In fact, the entire scale of Russia's foreign policy today is tactical battles in the Donetsk and Sumy regions. What was intended as a quick regime change in Kiev turned into a protracted meat grinder devouring the country's geopolitical capital. The entire military machine is focused on storming Ukrainian villages. All resources are squeezed out for the sake of a front that is barely moving. When everything is headed was clear back in 2022. Nevertheless, the leadership of the Russian Federation has been hammering away at the Ukrainian defenses with maniacal persistence. Apparently, the Kremlin believes that if they manage to destroy Ukraine, all the problems will dissolve on their own and 2021 will return. Although by the time Ukraine collapses, if it collapses at all, the world around will be completely different and less friendly to Russia. So he continues. Well, yes, and we haven't even touched on the issue of sanctions, loss of markets, total dependence on China. What does Russia get in return? Compliments from an inadequate American president and visits from African leaders. Oh, and regular calls and visits from world leaders with an offer to end the war. Previously, Russia was surrounded by a buffer zone of formal neutrality. Now it is surrounded by a system of defensive alliances, where Moscow often has neither allies nor intermediaries. Such tectonic shifts are irreversible. This very fact suggests that the geopolitical special operation has led to the exact opposite result. Now that is an excellent analysis, and that's from within Russia. So, and you can add to that the fact that their goal was to demilitarize Ukraine. Ukraine is more militarized, more capable than it ever has been. They've lost ground in the peak in March of 2022 in terms of the actual ground they occupy. And the economy is being drained constantly, and it's just bleeding out, both in men and in resources and in economic capacity, bleeding out slowly, just bleeding out slowly. And what is their one hope? Their only hope. There's only one hope. Right? It's that the West gets tired. And here, their only one hope is Trump. They hope Trump helps. He's already cut aid to Ukraine. He's weakened the unity against Russia. And he sent signals that Putin just needs to wait and Trump will help him out even more. But, Trump is actually giving Russia space to breathe. Trump is really Russia's only hope. And there's a good chance that that Trump will bail Russia out. Europe seems to be holding, at least for now, we'll see, with elections and right-wing governments, we'll see how that all plays out. But for now, Europe seems to be holding. America is the weak point. Trump is the weak point. And the one hope that Putin has is that Trump bails him out. And he very well might. He very well might. All right, yes. So you'll hear a lot of negative news about Ukraine. You'll hear a lot of, horror stories about what Russia's doing and its success. Russia has lost, already lost. There's a good chance that Orban will lose in 2026, and there's a good chance that in Slovakia, the right-wing government that supports Russia will lose in 2027. Not obvious that that'll happen, but there's a good chance that'll happen. They thought they were going to gain an ally in Romania, and the Romanian far-right presidential candidate lost. And a lot of the far-right, people like Meloni, who were perceived as being pro-Russia, turned out to be very anti-Russia. Even Le Pen in France is actively talking as anti-Russian, as pro-Ukraine. All right, let's quickly shift to Iran, to the deal. Trump submitted a proposal about a week ago to the Iranian regime that was pretty weak already. Iran basically turned it down. I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, the Iranian submitted a proposal back to the United States, a proposal that's unlikely the United States will accept. There have been noises coming out of Israel that Israel is readying its Air Force to strike the Iranian nuclear facilities. They've got the planes ready, the bombs in place. They could, within an issue of a decision by the prime minister, within hours, launch a devastating attack against Iran and sustain it over time in order to destroy Iran's capabilities. I think, by the way, that Netanyahu, for a variety of political reasons, has a strong interest in opening another front so as to distract the Israeli people and to, again, hold on to power. Now, I'll support that because going after Iran is the number one priority. But you have to recognize that Netanyahu is a devious SOB who does things for political reasons, often not for actual national defense issues. Anyway, according to a leading Israeli newspaper, there was a phone call last night between Netanyahu and Trump, where Trump basically told Israel basically told Netanyahu, to stop all these planning and all this saber rattling and all these noises around attacking Iran. While Netanyahu was trying to convince Trump that, stop these negotiations with the Iranians, it's not going anywhere. This last proposal the Iranians made is completely unacceptable. It's time to actually take action. Trump told Netanyahu to stand down and that he would not be giving Israel a green light to strike Iranian nuclear facilities anytime soon, in the near future at least, and asked that Netanyahu stop talking publicly about the possibility of a military strike against Iran. He wants that off the table, at least for now. Trump wants a deal. I told you this from the beginning. He wants a deal with the Iranians. He does not want military action. He certainly doesn't want Israel to take unilateral military action. He certainly doesn't want the United States to be involved in military action. He is the deal maker. He does not want military action. Boaz always eager to defend Netanyahu. He says, to be fair to Bibi, he has been talking about Iran for the last 20 years. Yeah, he has. Talking. Talking. It's not about talking. It's about doing. What the hell is talking going to help you? Iran only gets closer to a nuclear bomb. Yes, Israel's killed scientists and destroyed centrifuges and done all kinds of stuff. But everybody knows that without a much more aggressive stance, the Iranians will ultimately develop a bomb. And Bibi has been very, very good. Excellent. He gets an A+ for talking about Iran. And he gets an F for doing anything about it. Talk is cheap. Very, very cheap. And very, very easy. And, Bibi goes in the international arena, and he does it at the UN and in front of Congress, and he talks and he talks and he talks. He gives a great speech about Iran, and does nothing. All right, I know you guys are worried about kidnapped Greta. I mean, I'm sure you were all moved and touched by her appeal for help from captivity. When she was captured yesterday by Israeli special forces and kidnapped to Israel, where she was put in a room and asked to watch a video, a film of the October 7th massacre. But she refused to watch it. Supposedly closed her eyes, turned her back, refused to watch it. She's not interested in watching actual reality and watching what Hamas does. That she's not going to be allow herself to be subjected to Israeli propaganda. And her companions were taken to a room in Israel. They were asked where they were going to be screened this film of the massacre. By the way, all filmed by Hamas, all filmed by people on the ground of Hamas. These anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli, horrible people, refused to do that. Well, then, I guess they a number of them signed a document saying, basically letting Israel deport them. And Greta was put on an El Al flight, so she did burn carbon fuel. El Al flight. She was seated, as I requested, in the very back row. Unfortunately, an aisle seat. I would have given her a middle seat. I think she should have been in a middle seat, surrounded by Israeli patriots. Anyway, she was. It's immoral to put them in a room and ask them to watch a video. Really. After they have, after what they have done, which is, talk about, they're lucky they didn't land up in jail. Supposedly, some of the members of Greta's party refused to be deported, so they're now in a detention center in Israel. I guess they'll be prosecuted for trying to break a military siege, or they'll be deported later on. But anyway. She is no longer, you don't have to worry, she is no longer a hostage. She is now free. She is Sweden. We saw pictures of her landing in a Swedish airport and reporters interviewing her because, after all, she is Greta. She is a celebrity. She's important. And everybody wants to know, what is Greta thinking? What does she know about? Yeah. Anyway. All right. What do we want to do? I want a couple of announcements. Let's see. Next week I'll be in Arizona On Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'll be filming a Peterson Academy course on the corporation. Really, it's a course on American business, the structure of American business, the history of American business. I think it'll be really interesting. I think you'll be really interested in it. If you live in the area and would like to come and be there live and be my audience, then please do so. I'm going to put the link. I need to make sure it's the right one. I'm going to put the link for the course. Whoops, I don't have the link. Wait. All right, let me do this. 1 second. Yeah, now I have the link. For the course, it's the 19th to 21st. I'm going to put the link in the chat just here. So anybody who wants to come needs to go to this link and apply. I will then be back in Arizona on the in July. Right now, it says July 7th through the 12th to do two courses. One is going to be on trade and globalization, and the other is going to be on money. Those will go nicely together. I'm still trying to decide which one goes first, but those will be nicely together. So I'm hoping you guys can come to that. Again, I'm going to post, whoops, that's not it. Where's the link? There's a link. I'm going to post a link to that one in the chat. So anybody who's interested in coming to that and sitting in the audience and being there. Now, there is a chance that the dates for that one will be changed slightly, but I will let you know if that is the case. But in the meantime, sign up, get clear to participate, and then we'll make adjustments as we need to. But first things first, sign up for this. I guess they screen you just to make sure we don't have any crazies in the audience. They want to know that you're a sane, reasonable human being that is not there to create issues and problems and stuff like that. All right. Yeah, we got all that. All right. Another, we're, I don't know if we're going to the third hour today. Maybe. We got quite a few Super Chat questions, so there's a good chance we're going to the third hour. We do have a 3-hour goal. Because of Troy, thank you again, Troy, we have broken through the second hour goal, and we're well into the third hour goal, so there's about $150. So please consider supporting the show. You can do so with a sticker. No question required, just a sticker. And you can also ask questions, primarily $20 and $50 questions, $100 questions, $300 questions are given priority. By the way, Benjamin, thank you for the sticker. Rand, thank you, $50. Really appreciate the sticker. Mary Aline, thank you. So, yeah, I mean, Gail, thank you. And so we get a lot of stickers, and it's one way to support the show, value for value. You listen, you get value from the show, I assume, because you're listening. And this is a way to show, return that value, to exchange, to trade. I want to remind you that Alex Epstein is Alex Epstein is the as a sponsor of the show. AlexEpstein.substack.com. AlexEpstein.substack.com. Best information, best talking points. You will learn so much, and you'll become such a better communicator with regard to anything related to energy, fossil fuels, solar, all that stuff. Alex is a world-class expert, and particularly now when a lot is happening in this front with the big, beautiful bill and with the energy department, this is a great time to follow Alex and to be updated on everything that's going on with regard to energy in the United States. It could be really big changes. And then, of course, the Ayn Rand Institute is a sponsor. Reminder that in-person registration or registration for in-person attendance at OCON ends on the 16th, so less than a week, 6 days. You can get a discount for that and for the online registration and for just watching lectures online by using the following code, 25YBS10, 25YBS10. You should also what did I want to say? The conference is going to be in Boston. It's going to be from July 1st to 5th. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of valuable lectures. And you can find all the information about the conference and everything else if you go to aynrand.org, AYNRAND.org/start here. And there you can find the registration and everything you need in order to get hooked into OCON. You can also go to get the program for OCON. All of that, it's right there. So easy, easy. All right. Let's see. What do we want to do? We want to answer your Super Chat questions. And that's what we're going to do. I'm just seeing on Twitter that there's a bunch of reports now coming out of a number of different outlets confirming this call between Netanyahu and Trump last night. And Netanyahu telling Trump he's being played by Tehran. Trump saying, no way, I'm the master deal maker. And you are not going to attack Iran's nuclear facilities militarily unless you get a green light from me. And I'm not giving it. Not giving it. All right. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff out of Gaza. Israel's now giving tours to journalists for the, Hamas headquarters underneath the hospital where, Mohammed Sinwar was killed. The most latest Hamas leader was killed. Gaza journalist who was writing for Al Jazeera was actually holding 3 hostages in his home while he was writing, acting as a journalist. I mean, it's so corrupt out there. It's pretty unbelievable. All right, Michael. Is Trump himself a racist or just has no problem playing a racist to maintain power? If the majority of Americans are not racist, you would think going after vulnerable immigrant populations would be a losing strategy. I don't know if Trump's a racist. I suspect he is. At some level, a racist. I think just, I think he is, and there's some suggestions from his history that he is. But I don't think that's something that really animates him. That's a big part of his personality. I think Trump basically knows that MAGA is to a large extent racist. That the one thing MAGA hates more than anything else. Trump hates more than anything else trade, and particularly trade deficits. MAGA hates more than anything else immigrants. It's what really, really, really animates it. It's what gets them excited. It's what gets them passionate. Nothing animates MAGA and I think much of the Republican Party more than immigration. And illegal immigration. Illegal immigration. I mean, I think I told you the story. In 2016, just before the election, a few weeks before the election, I was invited to a conference in Chicago. It was a big Republican thing. There were a lot of Republicans there. I was hosting a radio show in those days on a Chicago radio station. I was invited as part of the speakers, and I gave a breakout session, I think, on inequality, and they loved me, and standing ovation or whatever. And then I was on a panel to discuss politics, and the issue of immigration came up. And as soon as I suggested, mildly, a pro-immigration stand, the place went berserk. And we're not talking about young radical crazies. We're talking about old people, 65-year-old, 75-year-old women, men, standing up, yelling at me, booing, demanding that I leave the stage, demanding that I be silenced, talk about cancel culture, talk about deplatforming. I mean, the other people on the stage who didn't agree with me were shocked by the behavior. And again, this was not some crazy right-wing way out there. This is just like Tea Party Republicans. These are people I'd spoken to about many, many issues lots and lots of times. Jennifer was actually there. She said she was there. It was October 29th, just before the election. And it was really horrific. And then I was supposed to sign books right after. Nobody, literally nobody came up to have me sign books. I mean, maybe Jennifer did, maybe a few people did, but nobody else came up and signed books. Because I was now the devil. The same people who had given me a standing ovation basically at the inequality talk, and I had the book on inequality that they all said they were going to buy, none of them came up to have me sign it because I just said something positive about immigrants. And they basically kicked me off the stage. I think the panel continued, but God, they got really, really, really aggressive. And I've seen that over and over and over again in front of Republicans. A year before that, Uncle Gata had been in a similar conference, and it said positive things on immigration, and they would have nothing to do with him. They wanted him out. They wanted the whole conference to stop. This is not new. This is 2016. This is not new. And Trump, of course, hooked into this immediately in 2015, 16, when he ran for president then, and has just escalated. It's gotten worse. It's spread to more and more of the Republican Party. And he's playing to that. He's playing to that. Now, if the majority of Americans are not racist, I don't think they are, I think these ICE raids were not playing well with the American people. I think the American people were getting pretty impatient and were not happy with watching ICE just go into restaurants and places like that and just arrest people. I don't think they were happy with sending the guys to El Salvador and sending many innocent people who were not criminals to jails in El Salvador. But this is the thing. This is the stupidity of the left and the smart strategically of the Republicans. They know that if they poke and poke and poke and poke, the left will descend into riots. And if they bring in the National Guard, the left will suddenly descend into riots to stand up to the regime, to the government in Washington. And that'll flip the American public, not because they're now racist, but because what they really can't stand is the burning of cars, people waving Mexican flags, people wearing keffiyehs. That they do not want. That they do not want. And Adam is saying, did they just not realize you're an immigrant? Why is it relevant that I'm an immigrant? It's not even relevant, but the thing is they always use the excuse of illegal immigrants. And, saying something like you're not going to deport all the illegal immigrants in America and you shouldn't, blew up. It just was unbelievable. We should have more immigrants, not less immigrants. Blew up. Whether I'm an immigrant or not is irrelevant to the blow up. They don't care. The audience. And the people on the panel were really surprised and taken aback. And many of them later on became MAGA because that's where the world was heading. So they joined. I mean, one guy who didn't was Joe Walsh. I think he was there. I can't remember if he was on the panel or not. He was on the panel. He might have even supported Trump that year. And then he turned into a never Trumper after he voted for Trump in 2016. And he just announced this week that he was joining the Democratic Party. He hadn't, so he's really become an anti-Trump guy. He had a big radio program in Chicago, and he lost it all because Joe Walsh, because he turned anti-Trump. Yeah, Joe and I were very friendly. Haven't talked to him in many years. I'm sure we'd be friendly again. Not your average algorithm. When people travel to the past, how can you travel to the past? When people travel to the past, they worry about radically changing the present by doing something small. Few people think they can radically change the future by doing something small in the present. Yeah, I mean, travel to the past in science fiction. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And we are changing the future by everything we do in the present, and the bigger things, the more big things we do in the present, the more we're changing the future. But hopefully, this show is changing the future, and will make the future a better place to live because of it. And thank you for all of your support that makes this show possible. It couldn't exist without support from all of you. Got 190 people watching right now. That's good. That's good. And another 265 on Twitter. A lot of people on Twitter. Martin says, I met Johan Norberg at his book signing event in Stockholm today. He said it sounded like a great idea to come on your show and talk about his new book, Peak Human, what we can learn from rise and fall of the golden age, of golden ages. I intend to have him on. I actually need to, I have to talk to my assistant to communicate with him and arrange. I'm going to have a bunch of interesting, I think, guests on. I told you I've got Scott Lincecum on, then I've got Michelle, I forget his, Michelle on, who's an expert on regulation, who just came out with a book. And then I want to have, oh my God, my memory is gone. I want to have George Selgin on. I'm already communicating with him. So in July, we'll have George Selgin on, who's got a new book out about the Great Depression and about the New Deal. And George is great. And so I want to have George on, and then Johan Norberg. So that'll be a bunch of non-objectivist intellectuals, economists, historians on to talk about the state of the world. It'll be a lot of fun. And Johan Norberg is fantastic. The guy's a good guy, and I look forward to having him on. Steve, is Trump the most anti-American president ever? He's anti-free market. He's anti-freedom of speech. He's anti-states' rights. He's anti-due process. He's anti-separation of power. He's anti-free elections. Yeah, I mean, I do think he's certainly ideologically and intellectually, he is the most anti-U.S. president ever. I think he's also anti-American exceptionalism. He doesn't think America's, special. I think he agrees with J.D. Vance. He wouldn't say it in these words because these words are too intellectual for him. He wouldn't say it in a sense that that America is not an idea. Trump wouldn't even think of that. It's a place and a people, and it happens to be his place and his people, and that's why he wants to make America great again and make America first. Not because he values anything that is American, qua America, qua, the land of the free, land of the brave. So, yes, I do think Trump is the most anti-American president ever in everything that he holds and believes. This is why I told you from the beginning that he was so dangerous, so much more dangerous, so much more dangerous than anybody else. So this is Greta today. Greta says, people are not treated well. Journalists, can you elaborate? It was dehumanizing. They didn't let me say goodbye. Can you give an example? Tell us what happened to you when you arrived at the port. Were they violent? This is Israelis. She says, I prefer not to. No, yes, no, I prefer not to. What a con artist she is. What a lying little, evil little, person she is. All right. Ex nihilo nihil fit. Wow. If tariffs are so bad for an economy, why do 170 countries have tariffs on U.S. products? God. If regulations are so bad for the economy, why do all countries have regulations? If crony income taxes are a bad form of taxation that reduces productivity, why does every country in the world have an income tax and a crony one at that? I mean, you could go on and on and on. You know, there is no country in the world that is willing to live by freedom. If freedom is so good, why is there no country in the world that's free? If capitalism is so good, why is there no country in the world that's capitalist? Well, you have to listen to my talks on capitalism to understand that, because morality distorts the ability to think properly about their own self-interest, about what's good for them, and as a consequence, they do suicidal, self-destructive things. Now, every country in the world has tariffs because every country in the world has politicians that want to exert power over the economy, and as a consequence, they can leverage those tariffs in order to exert power over businessmen. And then there are always groups of businessmen who, the Aaron Boyles of the world, groups of businessmen who want to use tariffs in order to shield themselves from competition. So they put tariffs on. Tariffs are bad. They're bad for an economy. And 170 countries around the world are a lot poorer than they would otherwise be, because, among many things, they put tariffs on goods. There's no free speech in a lot of countries in the world. Most countries in the world don't have free speech. Does that mean free speech is bad? Since when do we go by the numbers? Tariffs are bad for an economy. Every economist pretty much thinks this. It's been shown both empirically and theoretically to be the case. All tariffs are a tax. They're a tax on a voluntary trade. There's absolutely no reason to tax voluntary trade, and there's certainly no reason to discriminate between trade with your neighbor and trade with somebody who lives far away from you. And that kind of discrimination only hurts the person being taxed, the country itself, the people living in the country. So it's just a terrible argument to say 170 countries have bad policy. I mean, almost everything I believe in, there are a majority of countries out there in the world doing the opposite. But tariffs are terrible, and we'll have Scott Lincecum on Monday, to talk about lots of concrete illustrations on how terrible they really are. Soupychat from yesterday: does the Israeli far right want to actually genocide Palestinians, unlike Likud and others? I mean, they would like to kick them out off of the land, send them across the Jordan River to Jordan or to Egypt or somewhere else. I don't think they would literally massacre them all, but I do think they would kick them off of the land and send them somewhere else, to the extent that they could. And they would be much more open to killing many of them than, let's say, Likud or any others. Yes. And they would do this in the name of God and in the name of God's promise to the Jews. Michael, whatever you allow your government to do to others, they will eventually do to you. Yeah, exactly. There's the thing. First they came for those people, then they came for those people, then they came for those people, and you did nothing, and you did nothing, and you did nothing, and then they came for you, and nobody did nothing. Nobody did anything. And that's exactly how you should view what's going on right now. Jonathan, any advice on how to get over a broken heart? Well, first, I'm sorry that you have a broken heart. That's horrible. It's very difficult to overcome. It's a very, very difficult to deal with and cope with. I think the best way to deal and cope with it is to focus on other values. It's to embrace other values and plunge yourself into them and remind yourself that there is more out there in life, and just devote yourself to things that you love, things you're passionate about, things that you really, really enjoy doing and you enjoy pursuing. So I think that's the only way to do it, is to focus on the good, focus on achieving something positive. But I am sorry, Jonathan. Andrew, this trolling culture approves of anything in the form of a joke. The joke then morphs into a trial balloon and then a distinct possibility. Be leery of jokes that undercut real values and those who tell them thoughts. Yeah, no, I agree completely. Now, look, I think a lot of it is not a joke. A lot of what Trump says is already a trial balloon. It's beyond a joke. But it's a kind of ugly joke that serves both as a joke and a trial balloon, and then also as a signal to people, yeah, I'm really in support of you, the racists out there. I really think this would be a great idea. It tells his base, look how tough I am. I want to arrest Newsome or whatever. And then it becomes a greater and greater possibility. Now, again, I don't think Newsome is going to be arrested, partially because I don't think that's the issue on which Trump wants to be challenged by the courts on. And he knows that's one he'll lose. So, but just putting it out there is to create even more political hostility, more tribal hostility. Yeah, it really is a bad deal. And it's the president, remember. Cook, I want to confirm what you said on the last show. I live in LA, and you wouldn't think there was a riot anywhere near unless you turned on the news. Thank you, Cook. Yeah, I mean, I talked to my son who also lives in LA. He said the same things, and he said most of the demonstrations are peaceful. The riots are small and isolated. Cook also says, he just did it twice. Liam, are people beginning to recognize this isn't leadership, it's a power trip? I don't know. I don't have a sense of what people recognize or not. I unfortunately, I guess I don't go out there among the people often enough. Ollie W., thank you for the sticker. Esoteric Dichotomy, thank you for the sticker. I think we're caught up with stickers. Benjamin, thank you for the sticker. All right. Liam, typical Trump move, creating chaos for his own gain. Yes, no question. And knowingly creating chaos because you know you're going to gain from it. Lone Dissenter, if expanding the show required you to move back to the mainland, would you? Potentially, but why would I don't see the relationship between where I do the show from and it would have to expand it dramatically because I would start paying. My tax bill would go up dramatically, so it would have to be a significant expansion. But I don't see the relationship between expanding the show and where I live. You'd have to give me something to live off of. But sure, if it was a dramatic enough of an expansion, I would definitely consider doing it. Racer, I love YBS. I love the future. Me too. Cool. Hopper Campbell, Trump has publicly threatened to arrest Gavin Newsom without naming a crime, without presenting evidence, and without following any legal process. Yep. And instead of that, Speaker of the House just suggested tarring and feathering him. Vigilante justice. That's where the Republican Party is. James Taylor, how many subscribers do you predict you'll have in 20 years? Do you expect AOI to have produced at least another half dozen Alex Epsteins and Blake Scholls in 20 years? How many subscribe? 20 years. I'll be in my mid-80s. Will there still be a YBS in 20 years? Will I be still doing this in 20 years? Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea how to project that. I mean, it would be nice if I had 1 million subscribers, but it seems unrealistic. Maybe a few 100,000 if things go really well. I don't know. I don't know how to predict these things. In terms of AOI, yeah, I think half a dozen Alex Epsteins in 20 years is certainly reasonable to expect. I mean, Blake Scholls, the AOI does not produce Blake Scholls. Blake Scholl produces himself, so I have no control over the Blake Schollses of the world. Alex Epstein, we didn't produce, but we encouraged, invested in, helped train. Train is the best way. So I think we'll be training more than half a dozen Alex's. Whether they're all going to be as successful as Alex, I don't know. But maybe there'll be half a dozen as successful as Alex in 20 years. Yes, I hope that comes to reality. As to the size of my show, I just don't know. I have no idea how to do it. I mean, Z-Razor says, you'll have 1 million one-on-one Yaron bots that you oversee. Maybe that's where we're heading. Andrew says, are racists also narcissistic in the sense they turn against anyone not like them and they ultimately hate everyone? How do you view psychology of a racist? I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know. I don't know if you could tie narcissism to racism. I think there are lots of reasons and lots of ways in which people are racists. It mostly comes from low self-esteem. But exactly how it manifests itself, I think there are probably a million different ways in which different people can become racists. Some of them are narcissists. Many others are probably not. So, yeah, we will, we'd have to ask a psychologist who's maybe thought this through. I have certainly not. Roland says, does China count a third world? I don't know. Probably second world. Rational IP, can objectivists have the ambition to be a judge, even if that implies that you would be obliged to rule based on laws objectivism rejects? What about applying these laws as an attorney in order to win your client's case? Yes, I think you can be an attorney, and I think you can be a judge, and I think you have to. The law is the law. And, you know, part of what objectivism teaches us, we're not anarchists, we respect the law, and you have to work from the inside. And one of the ways you work from the inside is by becoming a judge, and maybe one day a Supreme Court judge, and where you can make a change, or even an appellate judge where you can write arguments that would argue for change. So yes, I think you can be really any job that would exist in a free market, you can do in a non-free market, knowing that some of what you do is subject to the coercive influence of the government, of an irrational legal system. I think that's true of being a lawyer and being a judge. Not the average algorithm. Why do Europeans rarely own their own homes? Most rent their entire lives. Is this high taxes and socialism related? Leftist intellectuals who dominate Europe want fewer people to own things. I don't know. I don't know that that's it. It might be that because in America, we have created massive institutions to subsidize homeownership. One second. I'm going to ask. Percentage Europeans who own homes. Okay, so so this might surprise you, but home ownership in Europe is higher than it is in the United States. In 2023, 69.2% of European Union population lived in households that owned their homes, while 30.8% lived in rented housing. Here's another data point. In the EU in 2020, 70% of the population lived in households owning their home, while the remaining 30% lived in rented housing. The highest shares of ownership were observed in Romania, 96% of the population, Slovakia, 92%, Croatia and Hungary, 91%. These are former communist parties. If we look at home ownership rates by country, let's see. I want to look at Western Europe. Okay, so in Switzerland, it's low, 42%. In Germany, it's 47.6%. Austria, it's low. Denmark, it's 60%. France, 63%. Now, the rate in the United States is 63%. So France is about the same place as the U.S. Sweden, higher ownership. UK, higher ownership. Pretty much all European countries except Germany and Austria and Switzerland have higher ownership rates than the U.S. of your home. So your assumption is wrong. So it's hard to, I was going to say, because America subsidizes home ownership through the tax system by allowing you to deduct interest on mortgages. You don't do that in Europe. And through Freddie and Fannie, by artificially keeping mortgage rates low, they encourage people to buy homes using mortgages. And 62% is kind of the rate for decades in the United States, as long as these programs exist. I don't know what it would be without the programs. But Europe, Spain is 75%. Italy is 75%. Belgium, 72%. Much higher than the US. Estonia, 80%. Remember, a lot of people in Europe live in ancestral homes that have been in the family for a long time. That doesn't exist in the United States in the same way. People are also moving all the time in the US. Europeans are static. Europeans don't move often. All right. That's why I looked it up, because it didn't seem right to me. James says, have you seen a show called Adolescence on Netflix? It appears that social media is going to have a huge impact on kids growing up today. Well, I mean, I have not seen the show. I don't want to see the show. It's about violence among kids, which is just a topic I'm not interested in. But I wouldn't take what they say in the show as, although it's based on a true story, as evidence one way or another on the impact on kids. I just think that people over-exaggerate the impact social media has on children. You missed my other Soupychat yesterday. No, I didn't. I'm pretty sure I responded to it. Oh, the one before. I think I did that one. Anyway, Clark, is there a resemblance between Trump's American carnage narrative and the end of times message of evangelical Christians who just happen to be some of Trump's biggest supporters? Yes, in a sense that he plays to their fears, he plays to their panic, he plays to their expectations. I don't think he believes any of it, but he plays to it. So the carnage, the darkness, the negativity, he knows his audience. It's the one thing you can say Trump is a master at. It's reading his audience. He knows exactly what they want, and he gives it to them. Christos, do you think these riots may spread through to other states and cause widespread riots or revolution in the United States? Is this a sign of clash between American sense of life and the government? No, partially because the riots are small. There's a lot of demonstrations. They're happening all over the place. They're happening in other cities as well. But it's not, they're not riots everywhere. And even in LA, the riots are relatively small and insignificant. It is a clash, I think, of some American sense of life. I mean, the don't tread on me, but coming from the left, coming from immigrants, not from who you typically associate that from. But it is a clash between the U.S. government and that. But I don't think we're heading towards a revolution, and I don't think we're heading towards massive riots all over the country. I don't see it. Michael, was the conservative movement based on racism from its inception? I don't think so, no. I mean, there were racists in it, but one of the things that William F. Buckley tried to do was get rid of the racists from the conservative movement. But I do think that with Nixon's Southern strategy, where the Southern whites believed that the Democratic Party had abandoned them because of civil rights, Southern racists. And one of Nixon's strategies was to rally the South, to bring the South into the Republican Party, and to make the South, many of whom were racist at the time, part of the Republican Party, part of a new coalition that would elect Republicans. And that was the Southern strategy of Nixon. And I think he brought many racists into the party. And I think that is, that got deflated for a while because racism stopped being an issue. And then it became a big issue with immigration and with woke, with intersectionality, woke, and the new left. They raised racism again, and the right is responding to that. Not your average algorithm. When will Rand defeat Kant already? Not in my lifetime, maybe in yours. I don't know. Artin, can you do a show on the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, please? The racist right in Europe uses it nonstop. And thanks to Trump, they are rising. Yeah, I'll do that. I did a show on it a few years ago when Tucker Carlson was talking a lot about it a while back. But yeah, we can do an updated show on it. JJGBiz, I'm sure you've shared before, but where in Israel are you from? How old were you when you left? Was Hebrew your first language? English? How much personal attachment do you feel towards Israel? I lived in various places in Israel. I was born in Jerusalem, the holy city. I lived in Eilat, which is in the southern tip of Israel, for a while, and mostly I lived in Haifa in the north. I left Israel for good when I was 26 years old. Yeah, 26 years old. But I lived in the UK when I was 6 to 9, something like that, and in the US when I was 14 to 16. English, Hebrew was, I grew up with both English and Hebrew at home. There were periods in which Hebrew dominated, when I was little, and then periods when English dominated, for example, when we lived in England. And ultimately, we spoke English at home, but I grew up with both languages. How much personal attachment do I feel? I mean, the kind of attachment you feel to the place you grew up, plus an attachment to a place that I think is fundamentally good. I like Israeli culture. There are a lot of things I like about Israel. A lot of things I like about Israelis. There are a lot of things I don't like, but there are a lot of things I like. So I feel attachment to the things I like and to the places I grew up in. It's still true that all my immediate family lives in Israel. I have a brother and 2 sisters, and I have parents who are still alive, and aunts and uncles and cousins and all of that in Israel. So I certainly do feel a personal attachment to it. I try not to let that interfere with being objective about evaluating its actions. Matthew, does Trump pacifism make sense in combination with his other views? Yeah, I mean, he's not a pacifist. He's an isolationist. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to care about other countries. He wants to just stay home. And he's really, again, feeding off of MAGA. MAGA is sick of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's a certain justification for it, that we can't win, and in the country we seem to lose. So, I mean, again, he's giving MAGA what they want, which is no more wars. No more wars. I don't know what his personal ideas are, though I think he basically doesn't care. He doesn't want America involved because why should we? We just shouldn't care about the world. Subkaski says, I hope you and your wife stay safe. I'm sure we will. Neo says, if you became the next U.S. president, how would you deal with Islam internally? God, I would, basically assign to the FBI and other intelligence agencies the assignment to identify among the Muslim community in the United States the Islamists and monitor them and use any reason or any suspicion of anti-American activity to either deport them or imprison them or try them for involvement in terrorism or whatever it happens to be. So most of the Muslim community in the United States is not Islamist, and I would leave them alone. But the Islamists should be clearly monitored, and there should be profiling of Islamists internally. Muslims are a tiny fraction of the population in the United States. They don't pose a threat. But the extremists, those who want to use Islam, want to use violence in the name of Islam, need to be stopped. And for that, you need primarily intelligence and monitoring, policing, FBI, kind of the intelligence functions of the government to stop them. Esoteric Economy says, hey, Yaron, have a good day. Have a good day to you too, Esoteric Economy. Thank you. PB says, curious, your thoughts on the book Unit X, How the Pentagon and Silicon Valley Are Transforming the Future. of war. I found it revealing of U.S. defense stagnation due to cronyism. Yeah, I agree. I found it the same way. Sad that it was so difficult to break through the cronyism, break through the stagnation. It's not just cronyism. It's also just the mentality of Pentagon bureaucrats, that the military is bureaucratized, the Pentagon and the Defense Department are bureaucratized. And in spite of some people, even at the top, wanting to innovate and to bring in new ideas and to bring in new technology and to break the stagnation, it's very difficult. And sadly, I think the current defense secretary is going to be no help here, really, because he's not smart enough to do it, right? I thought the book was very good, educational, enlightening, scary, and I'd like to hope that a lot of people who in politics read it and take it seriously and devote themselves to making real changes, so that we can we can actually break the stagnation and start growing or start improving defense defense purchases and strategy in a significant way. I've been complaining endlessly about the lack of strategy in the Department of Defense. Christian, it's sad that the loudest voices for immigrants are left-wing activists who hate America. There is no mainstream voice defending immigrants on the basis of American principles. That is sad, because today, if you defend immigrants, you're immediately, sidelined. You're immediately ridiculed. If you try to defend immigrants, you're immediately labeled anti-American, as I tried to do in front of Republicans, and it's very hard to do. So at best, you'll find people very moderately, very mildly talking about illegal immigrants. You saw what happened to Elon Musk and Vivek when they tried to defend H-1B. MAGA just went all out, attacked them. It's very difficult to advocate for rational, good positions when you get attacked viciously by people on the right, by all these, by MAGA and the rest of them, and by the president himself. All right. Let's see. David, please do a podcast with Peter Schiff. He is your neighbor, after all, and an old friend. You promised you'd send him a text a couple of months ago when I asked. Big thanks for your work. All right. Putting a note down. I got Johan Norberg, Peter Schiff. Yeah. I mean, part of it is I'm embarrassed by the fact that I haven't been in touch with him for such a long time. But yeah, I think I'll do that. All right, Andrew, can you imagine a Hank Reardon or Dagny not giving a job to a person because of the color of his skin or his immigration status, for that matter? Racism would be absurdity to them, yes, as it should be to every single one of you. It's just insane. It's, as Ayn Rand said, the most primitive form of collectivism, and you all know what Ayn Rand thought of collectivism. All right. The good news is that Senator Josh Hawley, is advocating for a raise in the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. So you'll all get a raise soon. Isn't that cool? Josh Hawley. Thank Josh Hawley. I called Josh Hawley way before anybody else. I saw him for what he was way before anybody else. I mean, he also qualifies as one of those I told you so. I mean, is somebody keeping a list? Somebody was supposed to keep a list of all the I told you so's from the last 24 years. I don't know. Maybe somebody's keeping a list. I don't have a list. Somebody should keep a list. Thank you, guys. And I will see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow it'll be at 4 o'clock. Yes, pretty sure it'll be at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We'll have another one of these shows. And thank you. We almost made the 3-hour goal. We've gone into our third hour, so almost $16 short of our 3-hour goal. But you've been great, particularly Troy early on got us, way above our first couple of hour goals. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. And don't forget to use a Patreon to support the show. Okay, Soupychat says, the Kurds remind me of the Israelis, a persecuted people who nevertheless fight for their right to exist. Yeah, I mean, I wish the Kurds were more secular and more, more civilized in a sense. But yes, I agree. Thank you, Soupychat. That brings us down to $11 to reach our goal. Somebody should do a sticker. See you tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Bye. Have a great week. Bye, everybody.